always with support from some of those associations. And so it has been very helpful for us to be able to make those changes. I did want to jump back a little bit on the surcharge and just mention we fought really hard this year to have a reduction in the surcharge, just a reduction in the surcharge. We wanted a 5% reduction to cover for the increased cost this year, and we had a pretty robust conversation at the MIP table about that. At the end of the day, it was voted not to do that, and primarily concerned that yes, the numbers look great, they're going in the right direction, they're very positive, but until Cedar Rapids gets into a positive state, really not willing to reduce that surcharge. And if you kind of look at where the rest of the entities are, we are still very far behind them in regards to what our balance is and compared to the other entities. So we'll go at it again this year. We'll have more people that will come on the plan again this year. And again, we should be in the positive by the end of this year. And then we are going to be looking at all our plan designs for the upcoming year. And so restructuring that and looking at blended MIP rates going forward. And as Dave mentioned, then also putting some parameters and some guidelines around who gets assessed surcharges and how do you get out of that then once the surcharge is assessed. So lots going on with all of that costing piece.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? Let's move forward to the responses to the Auditors Activity Fund procedures. Sherry.
Thank you, Gary. So these agreed upon procedures took place in November 18th to the 21st, 2019. So final report was presented at the Audit Committee meeting on January 22nd, 2020. Our March Audit Committee meeting was canceled, so this brings us to today with reporting the responses. 5 sites had findings requiring responses, and the findings and responses are as follows. Jefferson High School, the finding was for 3 receipts that were not turned into the bookkeeper timely. The response was that those responsible for the discrepancies were notified and reminded of the procedures regarding deposits and cash handling. Kennedy High School, 2 past due invoices to the district. The response, both were transportation invoices and they were waiting on the approval from the athletic director. Payment for both invoices was made in December. Washington High School, the finding was for 3 receipts that were not turned into the bookkeeper timely. The response was that she sent an email to the 3 in charge of the activities right after the receipts were turned in to let them know money needs to be turned in daily, and now that seems to be followed. A second finding was in regards to receipts. 1 did not have supporting documentation, 1 void was not marked as void, and 1 was remitted in a batch where there was a variance in the total. The response was, this was my error, and since this was found, I've reviewed the secondary school activity fund accounting manual and feel confident that it will not happen again. Also, additional training was offered from the accounting department. McKinley Middle School, purchase orders were not used at this school. The secretary at McKinley was new. The process requiring purchase orders was covered in training, and it's also outlined in the Student Activity Fund Manual. The response was that she will now use purchase orders, and again, additional training was offered from the accounting department. Roosevelt Middle School, this finding noted that purchase orders were not always used and not always signed. The response was she is making sure that purchase orders are being used and signed. She will make certain that signed purchase orders are stapled to the check stub when payment is made. A second finding was a variance between a receipt total and invoice total. The response was that this was from money turned into her, and she'll do a better job of counting money turned in so she knows immediately if there's a difference. That concludes the findings and responses. Are there any questions?
Chris, overall, or Sherry, I'm sorry. Overall, are you okay with how everyone's addressing it, and you feel like we made the headway we need to on, training and things like that?
I feel confident, and the reasons are 3 of the schools were the high schools, and the receipts now, because we changed our procedures and went by the percent of activity, there's a huge amount of receipts being pulled. There's a lot of money collected at the schools, and sometimes they simply don't know that money is even being collected until it's turned in. All of the bookkeepers immediately addressed this. The one at Washington, as soon as the money was turned in, she didn't even have to wait to see if this was pulled by the auditors or was even written down as a finding. She had addressed this immediately. The 2 with purchase orders, Roosevelt, we still work with. There has been an issue with purchase orders there. And McKinley being new, she does a very good job. It was just something, it was an oversight. And they do reach back to our accounting department. When I say additional training is offered, they usually will reach back and just confirm, if they need something, or as in Washington's case, she pulled the activity fund manual and found exactly where this was stated. So I personally don't really have a concern.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Let's go ahead to the independent auditors scope of the audit. Jordan and Chris.
Yep. Thank you, Gary. So attached in your guys' packet is the arrangement letter with the district this year that we've put together and proposed on. And it covers the terms of our agreement. It would be that RSM will audit the district's governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining funded information for the year ending June 30th, 2020. In addition to auditing the funds, we will also perform an audit of the single audit as well as the uniform guidance. So that's all the federal dollars that the district receives. We'll also include a report on internal controls, which will include any significant deficiencies and material weaknesses in controls of the district. We'll also provide a report that will give our opinion on any compliance matters that will address material errors, fraud, abuse, violation of compliant obligations, and basically any other responsibility that you could think of that the district has to follow that they're not. We'll report on those to you. So that's kind of the scope of the arrangement of what we're going to be looking at. Now I'm going to kind of break into what RSM's responsibilities are versus what the districts are. So responsibilities of us as the auditors: we'll conduct our audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, government auditing standards, the provisions of the Single Audit Act, uniform guidance, and the U.S. Office of Management and Budget Compliance Supplement. So basically that's all of the sources that tell us how we should audit the district. So they provide guides and resources that we use and interpret into our audit, as well as RSM's own procedures that we include as well. The whole purpose of doing that is that we'll perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So we do apply a concept of materiality, and we do consider that throughout our audit. Next, the responsibilities of management. Management's responsible for financial reporting, so they're responsible for reporting under U.S. GAAP. They're responsible to implement and design and maintain a control environment, and they are responsible to provide us as auditors access to review any of the records, documentations, and any other matters. So I think that's a real high level of how the breakout goes. There's really been no changes in any of that information. The one non-audit service that's covered in this letter that I would like to point out to you is the district does outsource the report writing function to RSM. that is reviewed, and the way that independence is maintained is through Dave's review of that audit report prior to issuance. So he goes through and thoroughly reviews it, and basically RSM's kind of doing that more as a time saver for Dave than anything. The one thing that I did want to point out that is unique, which Dave's actually scrolling down to it right now, is situation regarding COVID-19. So this is a new paragraph that we've added to our representation letter this year. This is just calling out that if there's any impact due to any travel restrictions or anything like that, we'll address it this time. Right now, the audit's scheduled to be performed in the fall, so hopefully this is all done in the way and we can be on site and no issues at all from our end. But RSM has, gotten five weeks of preparing, working remotely already, so we're getting pretty used to it. And I know Sherry and Dave have uploaded information to a Collaborate site that we use, that we could, do some of the audit remotely if it needed to come to that. Like I said, hopefully it doesn't come to being that point, and some of these travel restrictions and things like that are lifted by the time the audit occurs. But just wanted to point that out. In addition, related to COVID-19, it's not included in the representation letter. It's actually not formally approved by the GASB, but we're expecting the comment period closes on 4/30, and we're expecting this to pass at the May meeting. But basically, GASB is electing to defer any pending pronouncements defer them 1 year from the effective date. So, for example, GASB 84, which was fiduciary funds, would have been effective for the district year ending June 30, 2020. That's deferred to June 30, 2021 now, pending this get approved. But all signs say that it's going to be approved, and I think all parties want that. So we're not expecting any new standards or anything like that to be impacting the district this year. The rest of the letter kind of goes through to cover our fees. We had a proposal that was from a few years ago that calls out that it was $65,525, which our fees will not exceed. Then kind of the rest of this is some discussion, if any of these items are not met, claim resolution and information security terms, what our actual written reports will be, and then our policy on accepting electronic signatures. And as you can see, these are the parties that will sign that, but no really changes to that or anything like that. So are there any questions regarding the arrangement letter or anything that I just kind of covered there?
So Jordan, high level, there's really not been anything in the way of changes other than the COVID-19 paragraph and the GASB potential.
Yep. So that would be the only thing that's unique. And like I said, I'm very hopeful that that's resolved. But as a district, and I know Sherry's familiar with the Collaborate site a little bit, so if it came to having to do things remotely, I think we could do it. It might not be necessarily as easy for Dave and Sherry to have to upload everything versus pull out a piece of paper and hand it to them. But I think we have the capabilities, and but like I said, hopefully for everybody involved, that doesn't come to that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I do also want to point out one additional thing, Gary. There was a second letter that we also communicate. That's just a governance letter that we provide, which, Dave, I'm not sure if that got forwarded out to the audit committee, but if it hasn't, could we forward that along? But basically, it just kind of reiterates some of that information. And a couple of things I wanted to point out to you that we want to communicate to you guys as the audit committee is just when we're planning on doing the audit. So we're going to do interim in July, and then field work actually starts August 31st is kind of what we have penciled in right now. And then want to discuss what we as auditors have identified as significant risks. So we've identified management override and fraudulent revenue recognition, which is the same risks we have for the district's every year. But as we go throughout our planning, and if we find anything unique or different, or changes in controls, due to COVID and things like that, or anything else that would result in a significant risk being identified, we would communicate that to you guys as the audit committee as well.
Thank you.
Gary, did Dave say he's going to send the copy of this letter to the rest of the committee then?
I will. Received that letter yet? Because I'm not. That wasn't in the packet of information you guys sent.
I didn't.
Me.
Was it not?
I will send it to you right now, Dave. If you don't have it, sorry about that.
Yeah, I don't.
It's not necessary to have now, but
Right.
Thanks.
Yep, sorry about that, Dave. I didn't.
That's all right.
In your hands right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I will forward that on to the committee.
So Jordan, Chris, let's move on to the qualifications experience.
Yeah, so I'll take it from here. So the next couple slides are just the bios of the senior people on the engagement this year. It should be no surprise, very similar to last year. Heidi will be in that overarching partner role, and then I will be. I try to move it down your screen, David. I will be in the engagement lead role this year. I'm a senior manager. I kind of got involved with the district last year, and then Jordan will be in the manager role. So, in communicating with Dave and Sherry, we just wanted to bring up to your attention. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
You're very muffled.
Muffled.
When you're closer, we can hear you better.
Can you hear me now?
It's not great.
I'm sorry. Is there a number I can call Dave or into?
Is everybody else okay? Maybe it's just me. It's not hearing very well.
A little muffled.
A little, but not bad.
Not bad. All right, I will try, and if anything you can't understand, Jordan, just jump right in. Yep. So going back, Heidi will be kind of that overarching client service role again this year. I will be the engagement lead on the job. I'm a senior manager with the firm. Heidi got me involved last year within the audit, bringing me to the audit committee meetings, and then Jordan will be the manager again. Heidi has accepted a new role within the firm. It's with our national office. So she's more on the technical side of things now, answering internal quick questions, doing information like that. So she's in a transition period now to where she's transitioning some of the clients that she's on and partnering on to me, trying to get me into that partner role and engagement lead within the district as well as other clients. So as far as my bio, I've been with the firm just about 11 years, been in the government industry going on 8. I serve every government client from school districts to municipalities, to counties, to tribes, to special purposes. So I spend about 75% to 80% of my year in the governmental industry. So that's kind of my background. I think everybody knows Heidi. Heidi's been a partner with the firm for 15 years. She's still going to be involved in the engagement this year. She will look at the higher risk areas to the district and make sure that the deliverables and audit report are meeting the GASB and GFOA and ASO qualifications. So. And then as well as Jordan will be the manager. Everybody knows Jordan. He's been with the firm since October 2012, working in that industry or governmental industry since that time frame. So Jordan, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself or you want to add anything?
No, this is, I've been involved with the district now for 3 years, kind of involved both from the audit standpoint as well as the AUPs and the UEN report that we do as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, but yeah, we're largely work in governments, and yeah, not too much about me, I guess, but.
Good, good. And as far as the staff goes, we're still ironing that out. We're having scheduling meetings as we speak, every week, to get our full schedule, but we hope for a bunch of the same faces as from our staff and in charge as possible. So we'll be working with Sherry and Dave on that as I have cash out there. So any questions on the qualifications or anything like that?
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. And Jordan.
I guess the next one, you kind of answered the question about partner rotation. Looks like Heidi is moving onward and upward, so that will happen naturally through the process.
Correct. Yeah, and we hope it's an easy transition for the district, and they won't, Heidi still sits in our Davenport office, so she's always available, and she's more than willing to help out after this transition year. And in fact, I'll probably be asking her probably every day a question on something. So she's still going to be involved in governments and everything like that. Just kind of taking a backwards step or a backwards role in client server and more technical reviews and whatnot.
Let's move on to the item 7, the internal quality control, material issues.
Yep. So the next item that we have here is the report on RSM. So RSM gets audited as well, just like the district does. They look at our internal controls and are ensuring that we have a quality system in place. The review was the procedures for the review were established by the AICPA, and there's 3 opinions that you can get. You can get a pass with deficiencies, or fail. Report from BKD, which is for the year ending April 30th, 2019. RSM reviewed a rating of pass. This review is performed every 3 years. However, in addition to just what we have to do based on our peers, RSM takes that one step further, and we also have an additional quality control procedures that we do. We simulate this peer review process on ourselves annually. So engagements will be selected, other teams will come and review it, and they'll be reviewing based on the same criteria that BKD reviewed us last year. In addition to that, every engagement has 2 senior manager or partner reviews. So we have a quality control review that occurs. So another partner will review the file after Chris. And then RSM just has naturally a structure in place of an in-charge review, a manager review, and then engagement lead review. So everything basically has 3 sets of eyes on it from our end. So that's internally kind of a little system of our quality control review process, as well as externally the reviews that are being done of RSM.
I have a question.
Yep.
Jordan, are you aware, did BKD put any files for Cedar Rapids School District? And if they did, were there any issues?
Cedar Rapids School District was not selected. No.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. I didn't
Yep.
know why.
Yeah. They do a pretty thorough job of being selected. I've been selected for our simulated one that's done by RSM, but have not had Cedar Rapids School District be selected for the actual peer review.
All right, anything further for Jordan or Chris? Dave, let's move on to the 2020 spring agreed upon procedures.
Yeah, I wanted to visit with the audit committee about the spring agreed upon procedures. Really nothing has happened with the spring procedures, agreed upon procedures yet because of the COVID, the timing of when that came into play. And I don't see an avenue where it can actually happen this year. to do the agreed upon procedures. And we've had conversation with RSM about this, and we think it's best that we just table the agreed upon procedures this year, and then we relook at that for next year. And so I do want to also bring up I think this is appropriate time to mention this as well. Our implementation of new software, because we were talking about implementing our new software on July 1. That has been delayed due to the COVID-19 until the soonest that would actually happen, go live, would be July 1st, 2021. And so we will be staying on with Grant Wood for another year for sure. And also, but we are actually moving forward with moving the Student Activity Fund into Grant Wood, because we have already started down the road of creating one bank account that we could to handle that with. And so because that was the piece that was preventing us from pulling the Student Activity Fund in Grant Wood, we now have the ability to do that, and we're going to move forward with that and pull that into Grant Wood. But I think as for the agreed upon procedures, we don't really see an avenue where that can actually be done. And in fact, timing, a lot of the things that's being reviewed, for this part of the year would not be in compliance, because there has been, we're finally getting to a point where we're actually getting some secretaries of bookkeepers to start to go back into the buildings to start processing some things, but nothing really has happened much at all at the facility level since this actually the COVID-19 came down. So I think it'd be a pointless to move forward with the procedures, and plus I'm not sure how we could actually make it happen with how we're not sure when we'll get back into the buildings to be able to do all this stuff. So I'm open to any comments or questions or concerns about that, or if there's agreement, that's the way we need to move forward. So.
Yeah, seems reasonable to me, Dave.
Anybody have any concerns or questions about that? Dave, we don't have to vote on that, do we? We can just decide.
Yeah, if you guys said, oh no, we really want to, it's going to be a challenge to make that happen.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the tentative agenda.
Yes.
And going the rest of the year.
Yes. Well, for right now, let's first talk right here is agenda for next year, but I do want to talk about our rest of this year. We have a meeting scheduled for May 19th and also June 10th, with a report coming to the board on the June 22nd for a report out to the board. I'm not sure how if we will continue to be doing virtual meetings at the board in June. And I asked Laurel Day what she thought. She goes, I don't know. But of course she wouldn't know at this point in time. But and I said, do we move forward, plan on a report on the June meeting, or do we push that off? And she was hoping that we could push that off till July to do a report out to the board, in hopes by that point in time we would be in a position that we could actually be in front of the board to do the presentation versus a presentation virtually, like because right now a lot of the reports going to the board, it's just the minimal things that our board are acting on that is necessary. We're not doing presentations to the board or anything like that. It's just standard things that the board has to act on, and we're not doing presentations or any additional stuff right now at this time with the board. So I just wanted to let everybody know if they're okay with the June 22nd being pushed to our July meeting, and also that we would I still plan on having the May 19th meeting and the June 10th meeting, and it most likely will be virtually like it is today. Okay. And then if we're looking at next year, what I did so far, I slated these meetings and I checked to make sure room Cedar A is available for next year. And these are the dates that kind of coincide with what we did this year. If we go down through here, Wednesday, September 9th, and these are the same items that were slated here for the first meeting in September. But this is a Wednesday, September 9th. The no rotation meeting would be October 14th. November meeting would be November 18th. And the standard items that we would review in those meetings. Third meeting would be December 16th. And the fourth meeting would be January 20th. Fifth meeting would be March, and there's not a meeting in February. It seems like a very long time since we've gotten together because we didn't have a meeting in February, and then March got canceled, so it was a long time. March 17th is that meeting, in April 21st. And then the seventh meeting would be May 19th. And then the eighth meeting would be June 9th, with the board report happening on the June 21st meeting. So I have not changed the topics. Like I said, I did not change any of the topics in here. Obviously, if there are other items that we would like to bring to attention, we're not limited to these items. And there are sometimes we'll add topics that I feel are necessary to bring before the committee that are not typically in our charter. But these are all tied to our charter. And these are things that we have said in our charter that we would do and these match up with the charter. So. And I wanted to get these dates out to you. If everybody's okay with these dates, actually, I can get you invites for these meetings to everybody if everybody's okay with these dates. So.
Dave, I saw a couple of those that are pretty early in the month, and I know that that's been an issue in the past with getting reports out. Do we want to move any of those back?
You know, a lot of them are, like I said, the first one in September, that is but I think we wanted to have a meeting. We could do it after September 15th. That's when our audit report is due. We could push that one back if we feel like that's better. But most of the other ones are, I think, far enough out that we should be good. But it's that first, that's the one that I think. And June 9th, we're limited on that one. It's a June 9th meeting because we have to have it before we have our first board meeting in June. And there's not really an option on that one.
Dave, I'm good if you're to bring it up.
Yeah, I'm okay if we want to look at another date in September. I can see that if that's available, and maybe that was why we couldn't, because the room wasn't available. I can check and see if there's a better date in September that maybe is pushed off until let me see here. I'm trying to get to the right count. Because we would have the board meeting, I believe, would be the 14th, I think, of September. I could see if September 16th is available. If not, I will hold on to the 9th. Double check to see if the 16th is available. So
I think that makes sense. All right, anything else, Dave, or anyone else for the committee? Have any comments on the schedule? So I think the next item is the committee structure for next year. Dave's got the roster up here and those that are up for renewal. And I think at this meeting, we normally start asking the folks that are up for renewal whether they intend to, or if they know whether they're ready to commit to another term. So, Tom, I'll let you. Are you ready to commit one way or the other?
Right now, Gary, I'm 50-50.
Okay. And so you'll let Dave know?
Yeah, I will.
All right. I will. Gordon couldn't make the call, so Dave, I'll let you follow up with Gordon.
I have reached out to Gordon because I knew he wouldn't be here, and he said he would continue to be on the committee.
Excellent.
All right, excellent. And that leaves me, and I'm glad everyone's on mute, so I don't have to hear the raucous cheer when I announce that I intend to rotate off. So enjoyed my time, but it's been 6 years, and I think it's time to maybe get some more new blood on. So I'm going to take this opportunity to exit the committee and thank you all for your great participation and enjoyed leading it. And I think it's time with some of my other duties at work that I back off from this one. So with that, I think the next item is probably going to need to talk about the leadership of the committee going forward and recruitment for the replacements.
Gary, can I say something here?
Sure.
I don't know what the status of Wendy Lynn is going to be. For the last couple meetings, I kept getting emails that said she was no longer at ASAC, and I didn't have any other way to contact her. And because all of my contact information was work related, everything. And so I finally resurrected my LinkedIn account because I hadn't been on LinkedIn for a long time. So I got that reactivated, and I was able to locate her on LinkedIn and reached out to her. And he's no longer with ASAC. So he's kind of in between jobs right now. And so I sent her the agenda. I thought maybe she might be joining us today. So I don't know what her intentions are, but I will. We potentially, might have Wendy position to address. I don't know, but I just want to let the group know that that I was, like I said, I wasn't able to get a hold of her, and she is kind of in between right now. So I don't know what her availability will be in the future or not, but that might be another spot we may have to fill once I can get confirmation from her. So.
All right. Thanks for the update, Dave.
Yeah.
So as far as the chairmanship of next year, gosh, it's been a while since we've done this. Do we take nominations or volunteers? What's kind of the appropriate way we've done this? Tom, you probably have some perspective.
Yeah, Gary, it's certainly one of the things that can be debated. If there's volunteers, I would go with that one for the first go around. And then, or if someone wants to shame someone else and nominate someone, that'd be fine too. So, I think those are the two ways to start the conversation.
All right. And then do we have to make that decision today, or is this a chance for everyone to think about it and deal with it at the May meeting?
I don't think we necessarily has to be made today. I think we can talk and do it at the May meeting, because who knows, we might be able to meet in person in the May meeting, which will make that a little bit if we did. But I don't think it's necessary that it's decided today. We have time.
Am I not muted anymore?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Last year, based on what Gary said, and he warned us last year, in fairness, I'd like to deny that we had no idea he was going to not be.
That's true, Maureen.
But I had agreed to accept the chairmanship, except I'll tell you this, with two caveats. I think somebody smarter than me to do it, which would be anyone. And the other thing is, I'm in that, as a superintendent recently reminded me, in the age group where we are told to not come out because we'll die, which I'm taking it as a guarantee if I stay home I won't die, but that is, but I would still be willing to step in for chair if we can't find anybody else. And anybody else, okay?
Well, thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
So maybe with that, I'll just open up the rest of the group that's going to be staying on. If someone is interested or has a desire to throw your name in the hat, please let Dave know. And if we have multiple people, we can hopefully discuss and get to a resolution at our May meeting.
I would also encourage all the members to reach out to others that you might think might be interested in being a part of a committee. And if so, let me know and I can get them some information about the committee and reach out to them. I know we will start down the road of doing some advertising of this availability for next year as well. But most of our positions, I think, have been filled by word of mouth through people on the current committee. I've known some good people. So if you could reach out to some of your contacts, because I'm not sure how many positions we'll actually have open, but I know we have at least one for sure. But so at least we could get some names. So
Dave, I would say that's a good route. Is historically that's what it's been is for committee members to recruit peers and
yeah.
colleagues, so forth.
Excellent. All right. Anything more on the committee structure? If not, I think the last item, the next item is the survey that we do every year. Dave, you want to just touch on that real quick?
Yeah, the survey. First off, I wanted to find out if everybody during this COVID wants to move forward with doing the survey this year. I think it's beneficial. Because this would be the time after this meeting, we'll probably send it out and try to have it all completed and responses back by our May 19th meeting. And I just kind of want to get a feeling for the whole group if they feel like that's something that's a priority of this group to do the survey, or do we want to skip that this year in the midst of everything else that we're dealing with? So.
Can you give me a little background about what the survey is?
Yeah, the survey has a listing of, 30, I want to say 30 some questions. If I help me if I'm off, because I've only went through this once on the survey, but there's a bunch of different questions that ranks us about how you felt the committee operated and those types of things. And it's a ranking. And then we have a historical trend where we've been historically. And then it will also guide us if we think we need to make any improvements with the committee and make some changes. Because I think there have been some changes made due to maybe a lower score on one of the areas. And it just provides some guidance for our group on how to move forward. So.
Yeah, and I would just add to that is I'm not even sure it was the scores that drove things as much as comments.
Yeah.
I think over the 6 years I've been on it, it feels like we get a lot more direction on any commentary that comes from the filling out the survey on the specific question. So there are the 30 some topics. I think I don't think it takes more than 15 minutes to do, is my recollection. It does provide a nice historical framework to kind of measure how we're doing as far as, are we progressing? Are we going backwards? How is the operation of the committee going? So, I guess I'd be one that would say I'm fine with continuing to do it. It's not that much of a burden. And it's all electronic. So that'd be my 2 cents.
Gary, and I'd support that as well. I think it gives us some good self-evaluation and also reportable items for both to the board, but also the general public to if someone were ever interested in that we are doing some self-evaluation too. And I think it has improved the format of the committee as well over the last 5 to 10 years.
All right. I'm getting that as a consensus of yes to move kind of. All right. So I will work on it. You probably won't get it this week. It'll probably be next week. Because I have to work with somebody in communications to get that set up. So I will work with them and try to get this out to you guys next week. And in hopes that we can, in the communication, I'll kind of put a deadline when they have that back so I can actually compile everything, get everything together for our May 19th board meeting, audit committee meeting. So, all right.
All right, moving on to the local revenues report, Dave.
All right. I'm going to minimize this so we can, there we go. Local revenues report here. Hopefully everybody can see this. It's kind of small on here. A lot of the same comments that we've had looking at transportations, the timing of payments, and obviously we are probably a little bit further behind now, even with COVID, because a lot of these things haven't continued on with billings and stuff. So that might be a bigger issue, the next couple of months too, until we can get back to somewhat normal. We have local grants and donations. We are down significantly right now, by 28% compared to last year in grants that we have received. Some of that is grants that might flow through our foundation or some other grants that we have, but we are down. We have received, it's a big percent. The only reason why it's a small dollar amount, but a big percent in this refund of prior year expenditures. We have $8,600. That's a fair amount of increase, and that is and that is due to unused flex dollars were refunded to us. The flex dollars that employees forfeit by not spending, that money came in this year. So, and miscellaneous income is up this time compared to last year significantly, and it's just for miscellaneous income we're higher. I could go more details on that. Other than I think it's timing, but there's probably something in there by itself that may have jumped it up. But if you want me, I'd be happy to try to research for that component a little bit more, because that is a pretty big variance. So management fund, it's I think this one has always been there. Talk about our dividends. That has not changed. We've received a settlement, $54,000. We actually had an employee situation, and we received some insurance dollars in that, and that's what those dollars are for. I can't go into more details than that. Save, we are miscellaneous income is up by compared to last year. We actually had E-rate payment, and our big rent payments up. Time in a big rent payment as well. So let me see here. Pepple, we're down 49% based on energy rebates in comparison to the prior year. Actually, it will be higher. It should be higher as we get into construction with a lot of the Coolidge construction projects. That will increase that. Let me see. That's very nominal. 5 seasons. Summer activity. That's why we're kind of down a little bit for summer activity. That's the difference there. Timing. And who knows what's going to happen this summer. We could be really down and not even have our summer activity. We'll have to see what happens there. And same thing with Rockwell. So any questions on local revenues?
What do you expect to happen with the SAVE fund?
I'm a little bit concerned. Not a little bit. I'm really concerned about SAVE funds. And I have already reached out to some of our consultants and talked to other groups trying to figure out what they think. It's very too early to know. But one thing I can say that's very nice, that the state started collecting sales tax on internet sales.
Yeah.
I think that's going to save us, save dollars, because without that, it would be a real struggle. And I think
this year, this house has generated a lot of income.
Yes. And, but we know there will be some impact, but we don't know how much. And so one of the things, that we allocate $2.6 million annually for technology. And one of the big initiatives right now is the one-to-one computers rollout. And we had this current year we're in, it was the first year we started that with high school, and next year it's with middle school. And then the following year we do a lot of the elementaries as well the following year. Well, this might change the way we go about it. And doing this, we might try to get geared up for elementary and middle school all together this year. But to be able to handle that with SAVE, we might be forced into doing a lease purchase arrangement to make that happen, because our number one priority is make sure we meet our current obligations with regard to repayment of debt and all of that. And depending on how SAVE falls off, revenues, that's our number one obligation. So it may behoove us to go down to a lease purchase arrangement, depending on how much those dollars are for the computer rollouts that we need, that we may want to spread that over 4 or 5 years, paying that over 4 or 5 years to allow us some flexibility if the SAVE funds reduce enough that we can make sure we can meet all our obligations, because that's our number one priority. But I know also getting technology in students' hands are very important. And especially, COVID-19 really showed that how important that is. And so, that also is very big priority. And we're actually having a meeting here first part of May to talk about elementary, and do we push that forward and make that happen before the start of the next school year. So
technology for elementary. Is that what you mean? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and right now we do think unless numbers fall off, and we'll continue to monitor that, but it's always a delay before we get updated numbers, and we'll continue to monitor that and see how that projection plays into in the numbers that we're collecting in, because that does play into the affordability of our facilities master plan as well. And so that's a big component of it, and we'll have to kind of watch that and monitor that. But I still believe that, it shouldn't, in my opinion, should not impact Jackson, new elementary for the Jackson site.
Really?
And Coolidge. I don't anticipate that impacting that, but if the numbers fall significantly, then we might have to have a discussion about timing of that. But it's way too premature to have those conversations until we get some more data. So,
can I ask one other question too about the local revenue? Could you speak to the food program? In the past, you mentioned lunches when the school's been closed, so I was curious about that.
Yeah, good question, Maureen. We are feeding kids. We're doing our best that we can. We have 8 locations we're serving out of, and we have our cooks, are working to prepare all those meals. And actually, we're getting volunteers of teachers that are handing them out to the kids. And we've been doing that ever since after spring break. We started that, and we continue that on a daily basis. And we had, was it for Monday? I think we had over 7,000 meals served on Monday alone. And, so we qualify for the summer meal program. The state and the feds opened that up. So we are able to get reimbursements, and we're getting reimbursements a little bit higher than the normal reimbursements, but it is in doing the sack lunches and breakfasts that we're doing, it's actually more expensive because we're some prepackaged stuff and things like that. It's a little bit more expensive to serve and all of these in this way versus cooking, what they normally would do. So it is a little bit more costly to do that, but we're hoping that the money that we are getting is going to offset the cost of those meals and the staff time that we are paying for the people working. But we have another issue. We continue to pay all our staff, and that includes our daycare and our nutrition fund. We are very concerned about that because we have not gotten any guidance from the state on whether or not the CARES fund can be used to provide funding for our daycare and our nutrition fund because we are paying some employees that aren't even working. And both of those funds rely on schools being in session, serving kids or having kids come into daycare. They're fee structured with fees being collected. And we don't have revenue coming in to offset those expenses. It's a big concern of ours. And so we've been there's a part of the CARES Act that basically says to be eligible for CARES Act for us, we need to continue to pay our employees. Okay. And there's actually an assurance that we have to sign off on that says we'll continue to pay our employees as much as possible, pretty much to the extent possible. And so it's kind of in limbo, that language is. And so we've been really asking the DE to weigh in, give us some guidance. But because when we read the CARES Act, it does appear to give us the flexibility that we could use some of those CARES dollars to offset some of our expenses in nutrition fund and daycare. And so we are waiting, bait and Beth here on the DE to make some communication to us on this. We ask questions every time we have an opportunity, and they just keep pushing that can down the road. They're waiting on guidance from the USDE before they provide guidance to us. And but we're hoping that they're supposed to be sharing some additional CARES Act guidance on Thursday. We're hoping we'll get some resolution to whether or not we can use some of the CARES funds to help offset some of our deficit that we are now incurring in our daycare and our nutrition fund.
Boy, Dave, you have my sympathies. Anybody having to run an organization in uncharted waters like this. Thanks.
Yeah. Yep.
Thanks, Dave. Next is the summary financial report.
Yes. You can, I don't know if it's necessary for me to go through all of this. You can actually kind of see where we're all for all funds. You can see total revenues is 209 million versus 208 million. So revenues are exceeding expenditures as of right now for all funds. And you can see the breakdown here. General funds 133 million in revenue, and expenditures about the same. We are up by 310,000. Management fund, we're running more expenses than revenue. We have the property taxes. We're a little concerned on collection of property taxes as well, because we're anticipating delays in the collection, and hopefully that does allow us still to meet our GO bond payments. Because that's a big, that's all of that for our GO bonds. That's 100% property tax, and we're hoping that the money that we collect this year will be enough to make our final payment that we have. But yeah, because of COVID-19, we're expecting some delays in some of the revenue being collected. Sales tax, we are running more. We have more expenditures and revenue at this point in time, but that's not uncommon. So hopefully by the end of the year that will be okay. Actually, sales tax funds. Well, actually, it will be more, to be quite honest, because we're going to be making payments for Coolidge, the new elementary on Coolidge site, and those dollars that we receive from the bond proceeds are in fund balance, and we will have save expenditures will exceed revenue that we collect this year, definitely, and next year as well. So, nutrition fund right now, you can see our revenues are exceeding expenditures right now by 600,000. I expect that to change in the coming months. And right now, we can see our daycares are running behind, and part of that is we do have billings that we do the Rockwell for our Rockwell component, and so there could be some timing issues on that right now going on. So,
thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Any complaints to talk about?
We received none this month, so
that's good.
Yeah.
Previous comments, I think there was one in there that about looking about I think we talked last meeting about the shared approach on internal auditor. In a long time, not sure there's any legs under that just yet, but I think that's more of a parking lot issue that we'll continue to keep on our radar. And I think with that, we still have the evaluation opportunity that's at the end of the packet. We'll probably have to do it by email this time, but if you've got any comments, please email them to Dave or to Sherry, and we'll get them incorporated, or to Sarah, and get them incorporated in the minutes. But with that, I think we're about to the end of our time and the end of our agenda. Is there anything else from the group that they wanted to talk about while we're gathered here?
I do want to make a quick comment about, the whole auditor. One of the areas we talked about that might provide some ability is to use management fund.
Oh, yeah.
It's a component of this, and having an internal auditor. There was a risk pool that was established by ISFIS, and risk pool for natural gas risk pool.
Yeah.
And the natural gas risk pool gave people the ability to use general fund dollars for the natural gas purchases, being a part of this risk pool. And that there are like 50 school districts that have been participating in that this year. And there was the DE recently, prior to spring break, prior to all of this, they actually weighed in on this because of the COVID, not because of COVID-19, but because of the home light that we are operating under. There's, they're supposed to look at the code more liberally than more, narrowly focused like they have been. And but the DE still has have been given the authority to interpret code. That's still in the DE when it comes to school issues. It's still in the DE's purview to interpret code. Well, the DE weighed in on the risk pool and said that they didn't feel that qualified to be used under management fund. So they have instructed all the schools to move money from the management fund back into the general fund. So now, but the ISFIS is pushing back on that. And so based on that decision of the DE, they are still, in my opinion, are reviewing Attorney General's opinion, interpreting code like they always have. And they have not embraced looking at the code in a different way to give us a little more freedom. So I'm not feeling very good right now unless the DE changes their tune about the ability to use management fund for internal auditor because of that decision. And I've been trying to have a conversation with them on another topic, but their number one priority right now is COVID, and haven't been able to get a time set up with them to have some discussions on this. So.
Dave, at that level, that kind of interpretation, where does it take place to at the DE? Is it at their in-house counsel level or what? Do you know?
Well, I'm sure they're looking at in-house counsel, but any guidance that we get on that has been coming from Tom Cooley in a response on that. That's who is the head of the business side of things, is what we've been getting our communication from Tom Cooley. And that was a decision that he sent out communication for that, and which was a little disappointing when all that came down. I'm not sure where that's at right now because that was before spring break. There has been no other communication regarding that, but that was a shocker when I heard that they have weighed in and said that
it's a disappointment.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, I recall, I don't want to belabor this, but I do recall when our council spoke to the committee last fall, when asked about one of the areas that was on the horizon that he could see, he specifically said risk pools. And at that time, I was unaware of anything in education, and I started looking around and found about the natural gas. It'd be interesting to see if he would, maybe at his next appearance before the committee, he might address that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You bet.
All right. Anything else for the good of the cause today? If not, I thank you all for making the Zoom call work. and wish you all to stay healthy, and we'll catch up to you in May.
Thank the district for setting this up too.
Yep.
That's been
Thank you.
great.
Yep. Thank you. And thank you, Justin, if you're listening in. Thank you for getting this set up. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody. Stay safe. And we'll talk to you. Expect, like I said, an email here next week with the survey review. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.